Chief Minister spoke on the vote of confidence. He is yet to give the reply on the debate. After the discussion is over and all members who have given their names to speak and participate in the discussion, only Chief Minister has spoken on this discussion. The other members have not participated yet. They have to be participated. The discussion is incomplete. It is yet to be completed. When it is to be completed, it is the decision to be taken by the Speaker, because Speaker is the custodian of this House. And the motion moved by the Speaker, Chief Minister, becomes the property of the House. In the middle of the discussion, the Governor has sent a message to the Speaker yesterday, and also late in the evening, after the Assembly is over yesterday, Honorable Governor has given a direction to the Chief Minister that the discussion on vote of confidence should be over by 1:30 of today, 1:30 today, and it should be put into vote, and there should be all this process will be completed by 1:30 of today. But discussion itself is not completed. There are 20 members who want to participate in the discussion. 20 members, they want to be discussion. How it is to be discussed, who are all to be participated, it is for the Speaker to take a decision. Since it is incomplete, I don't think it will be completed today, and it will continue on Monday also. Discussion will continue on Monday also. Mr. Krishna Beregoda, who is a minister and one of the member of the Council of Ministers, he intervened and argued. Once the motion becomes the property of the House, the Governor can't intervene or give direction either to the Speaker or to the Chief Minister. There are case laws also on this. Governor cannot interfere or give direction. So that he has brought to the notice of the Speaker and to the House. So, under these circumstances, it is for the Speaker to take a decision, and discussion will continue.
That's being the latest statement here that's coming from the Congress leader, Mr. Siddaramaiah. They're making it very clear that there are about 20 MLAs waiting in line in queue for participating for their voice to be heard in this discussion here. So it's very clear that the discussion will continue. So far, the Assembly, which has been adjourned till 3 p.m. this afternoon, and about 40 minutes from now, it's going to resume business, and the discussion is to continue, and not till the discussion is complete will the trust vote take place. Let's throw this open to our guests with us. We have Mr. Kingshuk Nag, senior journalist, also Vinay Tiwari, consulting editor with the Times Network. Vinay, first to you. This is continuous delay. This is delay by design. But for how long? The question that remains is, for how long?
Yes, and I think more, apart from how long, also to what end, because clearly Congress and the JDS know that it is very difficult for them to actually secure or cobble up any majority that they may be hoping to do by buying time. So, I mean, I personally don't see any of those rebel MLAs actually making a comeback and rejoining or coming back to the original party fold. So, frankly, this is a little bit of a farce that is now playing out where the delay tactics is being employed for sure. But what that delay is likely to lead to and what's the benefit for it, except for the opportunity to grandstand and make statements and speeches, there isn't much else that you can expect. I mean, if anything, I would expect the residents and the citizens of Karnataka to feel even more disgusted at what's happening in the state, because the only thing that should happen, which is the state getting governed, is just not happening. Nobody's interested in governing it. There is no government in place. They're all busy saving their own government, Sahir.
Right. Kingshuk, now we talk about on what they would achieve in this delay by design. Would it mean going to the Supreme Court and getting that on record, that they have a right to issue the whip once they get that right, so the rebel MLAs can be pulled in here for the trust vote as well?
I think they are quite confused what they are doing. What they are doing is also ad hoc, I think. But ultimately, what it will lead to is, at a point, after some time, the governor will decide to dissolve the assembly, president's rule, and they will have election after 1 year, by which time the Congress and the Janata Dal will lose all the sympathy they have with the people. And after 1 year, probably you will have another election where BJP will be in a better position. That, I think, is the sort of game which will go on from the other side. So right now, probably the Congress and JDS has some sympathy, but that sympathy will be lost if there is president's rule and there is no election for 1 year. People would have forgotten, because similar dramas would be enacted in other states also. And I think right now, the JDS, the speaker, etc., are trying to, they are a little bit confused. They don't know how to. So they are now trying to figure out. Now, first thing they are doing is that if this trust vote can be be postponed to Monday, which is not very difficult, because today I think is Friday, so there's Saturday and Sunday. So this will go on to Monday. But ultimately, I think there will be president's rule.
Right.
So let us see. It is very interesting for students of politics,
Vinay,
but as Vinay said, for the common public of layman of Karnataka, this is horrible.
Absolutely. There is zero governance, and president's rule is not the greatest news to be coming in here as well. Whenever we've seen this kind of issue of the kind of chaos that took place even in Jammu and Kashmir, we're looking at governor's rule there as well. Elections have been delayed once again, and there is administration that continues to suffer. So even having president's rule in a state after 1.5 years of misgovernance isn't really the best news to be wanting to hear.
Well, I mean, you should almost always have an elected government in place, because that's what democracy is all about. I mean, president's rule is not a democratic process. It's a constitutionally forced process because of an unstable scenario in a particular state. So obviously, governor's rule is never the right solution in a democracy. And in India, we have some instances of pretty farcical democracy playing out. And I think what we need some consensus on politically is to fix some of the anomalies and the gray areas that we have in our constitution, that is continuously allowing all kinds of subversion of democratic processes. I mean, the anti-defection law very clearly has been shown up to have certain gray areas. It has areas which are leading to confusion. People are exploiting those loopholes. And it's not serving the cause of democracy at all. What happened in Goa, for instance, has not served the cause of democracy, where 2/3 have just walked over. The order that the Supreme Court has given in the Karnataka case, for instance, has again opened up a new gray area, where the whip has been nullified by the protection, the so-called protection that the Supreme Court has given for the MLAs who are abstaining or who are not in the House. So we need to fix these grey areas that you have, because Kingshuk was making the point earlier to Sahir about how businessmen have entered politics, and that's changed the whole game. I just wanted to add one point to that is, while businessmen have entered politics, politicians have also started behaving like businessmen. So for them, politics is now a business. And that has removed any compulsion or any nuance one may have about ideology or morality or any of that sort. Whichever side they see the bread is buttered, they just walk over and go to that side. And we have a new situation where certain parties are Teflon coated. If you walk over to those parties, all your charges and allegations and controversies disappear overnight. So you have a very strange problem. And I think one way of solving that problem is to bring out certain amendments in Constitution where certain grey areas need to be removed and made absolutely black and white about what one can do or can't do in such a situation.
That's right. And King Shuk, we would like to add to that here. This is going to be a very long, drawn-out process in multiple petitions there, then which would need to be put in the Supreme Court to get clarity on these grey areas. Then.
Yeah, that's true. You require a lot of things. A lot of questions are being raised. Tomorrow, somebody might go to the Supreme Court and ask whether the constitutional parts of the constitution should be changed and all those such things. This is a very long process. Somebody will say that we are in a change situation, and maybe a lot of common people will also file a PIL seeking certain things. Maybe I'll also go and file a PIL because I've been much concerned about how India politics is run in the country. So this will open a Pandora's box. In a way, it is good. It'll give a lot of news to your channels, but it is also good because these questions need to be answered because today we are in a totally different situation from 1950, and you have to take care of these problems.
Right.
And I think the most fundamental problem, and this is the fourth time that I'm saying on Mirror Now today, number of seats in Lok Sabha are frozen, Assembly are frozen, though the population of the country has gone up so many times. When I was young, and I used to stay in Delhi, in New Delhi Lok Sabha constituency, there were 1 lakh voters only, and today there are 20 lakhs. So today you have got 543 seats in Lok Sabha, which has been frozen from 1970, and it will remain so till 2031. But the number of voters has increased. So isn't it? Don't I deserve
That's right.
a lesser, more number of MPs? But that question nobody is bothered about. Who will answer that?
Vinay,
So
undoubtedly, if we look at it from that point of view,
it's also an issue. Why shouldn't there be 1,600 MPs?
That's right. These are long-term solutions that are required here to this. What we are witnessing in the past few years that we've seen in other states here as well is a case of democracy compromised. But if you look at the immediate scenario here in Karnataka, which is adding more confusion to what already exists as per laws and constitution, do you feel that this will once again be revisited in the Supreme Court? That very key word on who has the right or whether or not no longer has the right now to issue a whip in an extreme scenario such as a trust vote?
No, I think it will perhaps end up being in the Supreme Court. I think somebody or the other, whether it's a political party or a private individual, I think will certainly approach or move the Supreme Court on the clarity on this issue because it has ramifications for the future. I mean, look, there were two previous instances of the Supreme Court when it had similar scenarios in front of them. One was in Arunachal Pradesh, the other was in Uttarakhand, where the courts were very clear. I mean, in the Arunachal case, for instance, the court very clearly laid out what the governor can do or can't do. And Justice Kehar's bench made no bones about the limitations of governor instructing the speaker, who was considered to be the ultimate arbiter of any assembly proceeding. The similar thing happened even in Uttarakhand, where Governor K.K. Paul's decisions were struck down by the High Court and then upheld by the Supreme Court, which is very unprecedented because not very often do you have a High Court striking down a governor's decisions, and that happened in that case. So now, but this Karnataka's judgment has again slightly diluted the anti-defection law's interpretation to some extent because it's created a precedence where technically MLAs can get some protection from being acted against the compulsions of a whip being issued and finding an escape route. So you do need that clarity. There is no doubt about that, and I'm very sure it will wind up in the Supreme Court. What will come out of it, of course, we don't know because these are very nuanced constitutional arguments. But look, Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, when he was he had a very long-standing public posturing position on separation of powers, which has been written down in the Constitution. But in the separation of powers tenet, some parts of it are grey. But I mean, it's a very, very complicated process. You know, rewriting the very basic tenets of Constitution is a very, very complicated process. So I don't see that happening in a hurry, but I think there is a need perhaps for it to be done.
That's right. King Shuknak, in the Karnataka Assembly, what we're expecting today when once it resumes at 3 p.m., with Mr. Siddaramaiah making it very clear that discussion is to continue. You have about 20 MLAs in queue waiting to speak out on this discussion. So under no circumstances are we going to be having the trust vote today, even till late midnight, if it stretches to that long.
Yeah, that's true. I think they will keep talking and talking and talking. And then this will go to next week. And by next week, they'll get 2 more days to think of new plans and things. So 2 days later, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm quite sure the vote will not be there today. And the proceedings will continue. I don't think the assembly may continue beyond 6, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It's not that it go up to midnight. So after 7 or 8 o'clock, the house will be So put to bed, and then it will be again reconvened on Monday. So by that time, we have got 2 days' time. These thinkers will think of new ideas and new strategies, and TV stations and journalists can also.
And these are strategies, desperate strategies, only to cling on to power, nothing to do with governance here. When I final point there to you on what we are suffering, on the losses here that are coming into account, losses in terms of decisions that had to be taken in a very crucial session, which is the budget session of the state.
Yes, the finance bill has to be passed by the 31st of this month, and that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And remember, if a finance bill in a state government doesn't get passed, the spending of the government gets impacted. I mean, you need the finance bill to get passed for the government to continue to spend. They can't draw from the treasury if they don't pass the bill, and I don't see that happening with the way things are drawing out. And this is an immediate crisis that the state will head into. There is another problem of the last 1.5 years where there's a farce going on in the state where you have where you've seen sides of the Chief Minister breaking down on many occasions, where both sides openly carping and criticizing each other and not allowing anything to happen with each other. The state is not being governed at all. And I think from a citizen's point of view, you need a citizens' movement which starts questioning all this a little more aggressively than it happens. Our citizenry is way more passive than what it should be. This is a complete defiance of the mandate that people give to a party to govern and run the state efficiently. I mean, we are very passive in many ways, especially those who understand the nuances in terms of questioning governments and those in power on this kind of farce that continues for way too long.
Absolutely. So we are looking at, should be in fact looking for a far more aggressive citizens movement, a citizens movement that perhaps could help in clarifying or even dealing with those grey areas that now exist, which are being manipulated in the system. Appreciate you being with us. We're slipping into a very tiny breather. Continuing with this, apart from other breaking inputs.